What if the next global oil game isn't being played in Saudi Arabia or Russia or even Venezuela, but in a place no one's talking about? What if the quietest country on the map turns out to hold one of the loudest secrets in geopolitics? This isn't just a theory. This is a calculated move, a strategic bet. And one man, Donald Trump, saw the opportunity before the world even glanced its way. In this eye-opening speech, we uncover a story buried beneath the deserts of Balochistan and the deep waters of the Arabian Sea, a story of hidden oil, global power, and the untold truth about why Trump is betting on Pakistan. This is not about politics. It's about patterns. It's about how visionaries spot value where others see chaos, how influence is quietly built behind closed doors, and how one overlooked nation may soon take center stage in the world energy war. Stay with us to the end, because once you hear what's really going on, you won't see the future the same way again. Pakistan's strategic position on the world map is far more valuable than most people realize. Located at the intersection of South Asia, Central Asia, the Middle East, and China, it serves as a natural energy corridor linking oil-rich regions with global markets. This geographic advantage isn't just theoretical. It's practical and potentially transformative. Access to people with a coastline stretching along the Arabian Sea and a gateway into the Persian Gulf, Pakistan offers direct access to some of the world's busiest maritime trade routes. These waters are already crucial for oil transportation from the Gulf to the rest of the world. If Pakistan becomes a player in the oil game, it could significantly shorten the global oil supply chain for key markets in Asia, and even this matters in a world that's becoming increasingly regionalized. The old global supply chains are being redrawn, especially in the wake of disruptions like the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and rising US-China tensions. As countries look for alternatives to traditional oil routes, Pakistan's location begins to stand out. For Europe, which is currently diversifying its energy imports due to reduced reliance on Russian supplies, having access to energy flowing through Pakistan would create an alternative bridge between East and West. The country sits just beneath Central Asia, a region with vast untapped reserves of oil and gas, and shares proximity with Iran, one of the biggest oil producers in the world. If Pakistan develops its own reserves and infrastructure, it could also serve as a critical conduit for energy trade across regions. Moreover, Pakistan's link with China through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, adds another layer of strategic relevance. The road, rail, and pipeline networks under CPEC aim to connect China's western provinces directly to Gwadar port in Pakistan. This infrastructure doesn't just benefit China, it opens up a broader route for regional oil logistics, making Pakistan a potential energy bridge between China, the Middle East, and Africa. And this is exactly where global players like Trump see an opportunity. They are not just looking at what Pakistan is today, but what it can become tomorrow. An energy hub, a transit corridor, a geopolitical pivot. Investors and power brokers who understand geography, logistics, and supply chains can already see the future forming along this route. Pakistan has long been seen as a country rich in potential, but underutilized when it comes to natural resources, especially oil. Beneath its vast terrain, particularly in regions like Balochistan, the Indus Basin, and the offshore Makran coast, lies significant untapped oil reserves that have never been fully explored or exploited. Geological surveys from both domestic and international sources have indicated that Pakistan could be sitting on billions of barrels of crude oil, comparable to early-stage discoveries in countries that later became oil giants. Yet due to political instability, lack of infrastructure, and limited foreign investment, these reserves have remained largely dormant. This is what makes them a silent fortune. Unlike countries in the Middle East that have already maximized their oil production and are gradually shifting to diversification strategies, Pakistan's oil wealth is still underground, waiting to be discovered, developed, and monetized. The silence surrounding these reserves isn't because they don't exist. It's because the world hasn't been paying attention. But some strategic minds, especially those with business instincts and geopolitical foresight, are starting to look more closely. In recent years, small-scale exploration has shown promising results, especially in Sindh and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Moreover, technological advancements in seismic imaging and deep-sea drilling are making it increasingly feasible to explore previously unreachable deposits. Offshore exploration, particularly in the Arabian Sea, is one of the most overlooked areas. Experts believe that Pakistan's waters share geological similarities with regions that have produced massive offshore discoveries such as Brazil and West Africa. The Makran Coast, if explored thoroughly, could reveal deposits that shift the entire regional energy equation. Adding to this potential is Pakistan's young and affordable workforce, a growing domestic energy demand, and increasing collaboration with foreign oil companies, especially those from China, Russia, and the UAE. This collaboration is beginning to lay the groundwork for exploration on a scale that was previously not possible. These reserves are not just an economic opportunity, but a strategic one. Any nation or investor that gains early access or stakes in these oil fields positions themselves ahead of the global energy curve. While the world chases proven fields that are depleting fast, the smart money is starting to look at countries like Pakistan, where the oil story hasn't even truly started. The global energy landscape has undergone a seismic shift in the aftermath of the Ukraine war. For decades, Europe relied heavily on Russian oil and gas, but the conflict shattered that trust and forced an urgent pivot. Now, Europe is aggressively seeking alternative energy partners, pipelines, and supply routes. This recalibration has opened the door for previously overlooked regions to enter the energy spotlight, and Pakistan has quietly emerged as one of them. Pakistan has quietly emerged as one of them. It may not yet be a major oil producer, but its untapped potential combined with its geographic location makes it a strong candidate for future energy partnerships. At the same time, the United States is also redefining its global energy strategy. As Washington distances itself from prolonged military entanglements in the Middle East and redirects its focus to economic influence, energy has become a primary tool of diplomacy. Trump's administration, and even those after him, began laying the groundwork for energy realignment, not just through traditional oil allies, but through new, underdeveloped markets like Pakistan. While much of the public attention remained fixed on Iran, Saudi Arabia, or Venezuela, quiet conversations were happening around South Asia, particularly Pakistan's resource base and its importance in regional logistics. Pakistan offers something unique in this reshuffling. It is one of the few places that sits between key global energy corridors and has not yet been fully tapped. The US and Europe understand that diversifying energy sources isn't just about replacing Russian oil with Gulf oil. It's about creating entirely new routes and partnerships. The strategic thinking now includes countries that were previously ignored or marginalized in the global energy system. In this new order, Pakistan is not just a consumer, it's a future supplier, a transit state, and potentially a long-term strategic ally. And the China-Pakistan alliance through the Belt and Road Initiative has already transformed the physical infrastructure. But the West, especially the US under Trump's vision, began looking at how to stake its own claim in Pakistan's energy future without directly challenging China. That's where oil becomes the gateway. Investments in exploration, refining, and private sector energy ventures allow geopolitical influence without overt conflict. Europe too sees this potential. As European nations push green energy, they still understand the need for reliable oil partnerships during the transition. In that context, Pakistan is not just relevant, it's emerging. The geopolitical pivot away from traditional oil sources has created a new map, and Pakistan is finally appearing on it. So over the past decade, China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, has transformed Pakistan's infrastructure, particularly through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEP. Massive investments have built highways, railways, energy plants, and most importantly, the Gwadar port on the Arabian Sea. This deep sea port is designed to serve as a gateway for trade and energy transport from the Middle East to Western China. While this has primarily been viewed as a Chinese strategic win, there's a less publicized angle that deserves attention. How the United States, especially under Trump, began eyeing a quiet entry into this same corridor, not through direct competition, but through energy investments, particularly oil. While China focused on logistics and infrastructure, the US saw the opportunity in resources. Trump's administration, known for its business-centric worldview, took a different route by encouraging private oil and gas firms to explore investment opportunities in underdeveloped markets like Pakistan. These firms, though not always publicly connected to the US government, play a crucial role in shaping long-term strategic influence. Through lobbying, partnerships, and exploratory ventures, they lay the groundwork for future geopolitical leverage without the need for traditional military or political entanglements. This strategy reflects a smart, indirect form of influence. While China builds the roads, ports, and pipelines, American businesses aim to control what flows to them, specifically oil. It's a symbiotic yet competitive dynamic. Pakistan, as a result, becomes a strategic chessboard where two superpowers play different games on the same board. The US doesn't need to challenge China's physical presence directly. Instead, it quietly positions itself through oil companies, technology firms, and joint ventures that tap into the country's energy sector. What's particularly interesting is how little this dynamic is discussed in mainstream geopolitical analysis. Media often paints the US-China rivalry as a zero-sum game centered around Taiwan, trade wars, and the South China Sea. But in reality, some of the most consequential moves are happening in quieter regions like Pakistan. With energy being a central pillar of power projection, the ability to access or control future reserves gives countries like the US long-term bargaining power. Trump, with his businessman's instinct, recognized this Rather than focus only on diplomacy or military influence, he saw oil as a soft entry into Pakistan's future. This approach is subtle, but potentially transformative, especially as the global energy demand evolves. For Donald Trump, energy has always been more than just a commodity. It's a strategic asset that shapes global power dynamics. Throughout his administration, he emphasized energy independence for the United States, not simply to lower domestic fuel prices, but to use energy as a geopolitical tool. He believed that control over oil and gas production could give the U.S. unprecedented leverage over allies and adversaries alike. That mindset didn't stop at American borders. It extended into identifying international reserves that could either strengthen U.S. dominance or prevent rival powers from gaining the upper hand. So Pakistan's untapped oil reserves fit perfectly into that vision. Unlike traditional oil-producing nations that are already deeply tied to global energy markets and controlled by established players, Pakistan offers something different, a clean slate. Its reserves remain largely unexplored, and its oil industry is still in its infancy. This means that early movers have the chance to shape not just how the oil is extracted, but who controls it, where it flows, and under what terms. And for someone like Trump, this represents the perfect opportunity. Enter early, invest smart, and build long-term influence through ownership rather than occupation. Pakistan's geographic location only amplifies the potential impact of its oil. It sits at a crossroads between energy-hungry nations and oil-rich regions. Control over its future oil output would not only affect Pakistan's domestic economy, but could influence energy prices, trade routes, and supply chains across Asia and even parts of Europe. That's the kind of power Trump understands deeply. To him, pipelines are not just infrastructure. They are veins of influence. And then whoever controls them controls the flow of power. Furthermore, the ability to support American or allied companies in securing drilling rights, exploration contracts, and export agreements in Pakistan allows for a quieter, more effective form of influence than military bases or diplomatic treaties. Its influence rooted in economics, in resources that every country needs, but only a few control. The gamble on Pakistan's hidden oil is not about immediate returns. It's a long-term strategic investment. In a world that's moving toward regional energy independence, being part of Pakistan's foundational energy narrative offers an outsized return in both profit and power. Trump's approach shows he understood that true dominance in the 21st century doesn't always come with tanks. It often comes with oil rigs and drilling contracts. The story of Pakistan's potential oil reserves remains largely hidden from mainstream media and global headlines, not because it lacks substance, but because it has not yet erupted into a commercial or geopolitical frenzy. Unlike the Middle East, where oil is synonymous with wealth and war, or Africa, where resource extraction is a hotbed for foreign interest, Pakistan sits in a quieter zone. Its oil narrative is not part of everyday global discourse, which makes it even more attractive to those who recognize opportunity before it becomes public knowledge. Visionaries and strategic investors understand that the most valuable assets are usually found where few are looking. Trump, guided by his business instincts, understood this principle well. When everyone is focused on noise, whether it's the price of Brent crude, the instability in OPEC nations, or sanctions on Iran, very few are scanning the peripheries. But that's where the next big plays often lie. Pakistan's silence is not a void, it's a waiting zone. Its oil resources are not in the spotlight, but the signs are there. Geological data, limited but promising exploration, and increasing interest from both regional and global players. These are the early signals that precede a boom. And in the world of geopolitics and energy, getting in before the boom is where real power is accumulated. Pakistan's oil future is also muted by the country's domestic challenges. Political instability, economic crisis, and security concerns have discouraged large-scale exploration and investment. Yet this very instability is what keeps costs low and competition thin. It's the classic high-risk, high-reward environment, and those with the foresight to navigate it today may control a strategic advantage tomorrow. The absence of public attention creates a vacuum of opportunity for those willing to move quietly, without the noise of international scrutiny. Moreover, the West has long held a perception bias against Pakistan, viewing it more through the lens of counter-terrorism than commerce. But perception is not reality. Beneath that surface is a country with untapped natural wealth, a developing energy framework, and a growing desire for foreign partnerships. The reason no one is talking about Pakistan's oil is not because it isn't valuable. It's because the smartest players don't talk while they're positioning. They act first, talk later. And Trump, understanding the nature of timing in business and geopolitics, positioned early in a game most haven't even realized has started. The global energy map is shifting, and while the world's eyes are still fixated on familiar oil giants, a new frontier is quietly taking shape. Pakistan, often underestimated, holds untapped potential that could redefine regional power dynamics. Its strategic location, unexplored reserves, and growing interest from major players like the United States signal a silent transformation. Donald Trump didn't place his bet on Pakistan randomly. He saw beyond the noise into the core of global influence, energy. Where others saw instability, he saw leverage. Where others saw risk, he saw a rare chance to shape the future before the world caught on. In the race for energy dominance, timing is everything. And those who recognize Pakistan's hidden value now may find themselves far ahead when the story finally breaks into the mainstream. Thank you for staying with us through this powerful journey into unseen geopolitics and opportunity. May your perspective always stay sharp, your curiosity always lead you deeper, and your timing always be right. Good luck, and thank you for watching.